Have you ever found yourself feeling weaker than you used to, struggling to get through simple daily tasks, or waking up restless after a night of tossing and turning? It's easy to think these changes are just the natural signs of getting older, something inevitable that everyone faces. But what if I told you that it might not be just age holding you back? What if there's something deeper going on? Something many people overlook that quietly steals your strength and vitality. Most of us don't realize how much these small shifts in our bodies and minds can affect our independence and happiness. It's the kind of problem that sneaks up on you, dismissed as normal aging when, in reality, it's a signal your body is trying to send. The good news? There are surprising, science-backed ways to fight back and reclaim that energy and confidence you thought were lost forever. In this video, I'll share insights that can change how you see aging and your health. By the end, you'll discover simple habits that could make a real difference in feeling lighter, stronger, and more alive every single day. Let's explore this journey together, because it's never too late to feel better. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. There comes a time in life, often sooner than we expect, when the rhythm of our days changes. It's not always sudden. Sometimes it's just a slow, creeping shift that you barely notice until one morning you wake up and realize you're living a different kind of life than you imagined. For many of us, retirement arrives with a promise of rest and freedom, a break from the decades spent hurrying out the door, punching the clock, and racing through busy schedules. But what they don't always tell you is that, after the celebrations and retirement cake are over, the world can start to feel a little quieter. And sometimes, that quietness isn't peaceful at all. Maybe you know the feeling. The phone doesn't ring as often as it used to. Your grown children have their own lives now. Jobs, grandkids, and responsibilities that pull them in 100 directions. The friends you used to see at work are scattered, busy, or, let's be honest, just as unsure as you are about how to fill the space left behind. The hobbies you once loved somehow don't light you up the same way. You watch the news, you read a book, you take a walk around the block. But somewhere along the way, the days begin to blur. Monday feels a lot like Thursday. Weeks slip by in a stream of small, almost invisible moments. It's as if the world you once belonged to has shifted and you're not quite sure where you fit anymore. There's an ache in your back or your knees that wasn't there before. Sometimes, you wake up with a heaviness in your chest. Not from illness, but from a kind of loneliness that settles in when you feel like you're no longer needed, no longer seen. Maybe your hands used to be busy. Cooking, building, dancing, painting. Now, they rest more than they work. You see photos on the wall, memories of times when your life was full of movement, laughter, and purpose. You remember those late-night conversations, those kitchen dances, those afternoons spent painting, learning a new song on the piano, and volunteering at the local library. You remember feeling alive. But as the years pass, it's easy to believe that this fading of joy and energy is simply what happens. After all, isn't this what everyone expects? Isn't aging about slowing down, giving up those old passions, and letting go of what once made us feel special? Most people don't talk about it, but deep down, a quiet thought might echo in your mind, maybe I'm just too old. Maybe this is just how things are now. You might start to accept the idea that your best days are behind you. That now, you're just waiting. Waiting for visits, for phone calls, for someone to ask your opinion, for the next doctor's appointment. The world keeps moving forward, and you start to feel invisible as if life is happening somewhere else. But what if it doesn't have to be this way? What if everything we've assumed about aging, that it's a time of inevitable decline and loss, is only part of the story? What if, instead of accepting that feeling of invisibility and waiting, we asked ourselves a different question? Is this truly all there is, or could there be more, even now? It's a radical idea, and maybe it sounds impossible on the hard days. But let's take a closer look at what happens during this stage of life. Science now shows us that many of the struggles we face after 65, feelings of loneliness, loss of purpose, even those nagging aches and pains, are not simply the result of getting old. They're the result of profound changes in routine, social connection, and the sense of meaning that work and busy family life once brought. When we retire, our days are suddenly open, but that freedom can feel more like emptiness if we don't fill it with something meaningful. Human brains are wired for purpose. Researchers at Harvard and the National Institute on Aging have found that older adults who regularly engage in activities that give them a sense of value, like volunteering, learning new skills, or participating in community events, have lower rates of depression, anxiety, and even chronic illness. They sleep better, report less pain, and have a lower risk of memory loss. In other words, it's not just your body that craves movement. Your spirit craves it too. But here's the catch. It's all too easy to slip into habits that reinforce the sense of waiting and fading. Maybe you watch a little more TV each day. Maybe you stop calling old friends because you're not sure what you'd say. Maybe you think, what's the point? And let another day pass by without doing something that lights you up. It's not your fault. These patterns are common and understandable. But left unchecked, they can quietly steal away your energy, your curiosity, and your zest for life. So, what can you do about it? The answer doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't need to pack your bags and travel the world unless you want to. The first step is often the smallest. Notice what you miss. What was it that once made you smile or lose track of time? Was it gardening, baking bread, playing cards, teaching your grandchild how to ride a bike? Sometimes, reigniting a sense of purpose is as simple as picking up an old hobby or reaching out to a neighbor. Even small actions can create a ripple effect. Let me share the story of Mrs. Helen Richardson, a vibrant woman from Ohio who, like so many, found herself drifting after retirement. For years, Helen had worked as a school librarian. She loved recommending stories, helping kids discover the magic of books, and being a steady presence in her small town's elementary school. But when she retired, she found herself sitting in a quiet house, the phone silent, the afternoons empty. I started to feel like I was fading away, she remembers. Like my life's color was slowly draining. One day, Helen's granddaughter asked her for help with a school reading project. At first, Helen hesitated. She wasn't sure if she still had anything to offer. But that evening, as she read aloud, she felt something shift inside her. Her voice found its old rhythm. Her hands moved with the familiar confidence of years spent turning pages for eager young listeners. She decided, almost on a whim, to volunteer for an hour a week at the local library. That 1 hour turned into 2, then 3, as she began leading a weekly story time for neighborhood children. It wasn't just about reading books, Helen says. It was about remembering who I was, and realizing I still had so much to give. Helen's aches didn't magically disappear. She still had tough days, but her sense of loneliness faded. She looked forward to Wednesdays. She started gardening again and then joined a walking group. I wasn't waiting anymore, she says. I was living again. Helen's experience is not unique. Study after study confirms that staying connected and involved, even in small, everyday ways, brings profound benefits. Volunteering, pursuing a hobby, mentoring someone, joining a club, or simply having regular conversations with friends can help rewire your brain, lower your stress, and even strengthen your immune system. Scientists call this active aging, and it's a simple but powerful idea. The more we participate in life, the more life gives back to us. So, what gentle, everyday steps can you take if you're feeling like your world has become too small? Start by making a short list, maybe just 2 or 3 things you once enjoyed. Don't judge yourself or worry about being good at them. The act of trying, the willingness to reach out, is where the magic begins. Call a friend and invite them for coffee, even if it's just a walk around the neighborhood. Look for community events at your local library, church, or senior center. Many offer free classes in painting, cooking, or even beginner computer skills. Volunteer to read to children or help out at a food pantry. Sign up for a virtual class or a local club, even if it feels a little scary. The hardest part is often that first step. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Maybe you're thinking, that sounds nice, but I don't have the energy, or my body hurts too much. That's a real concern, and it's okay to start small. Studies show that even light activity, just 15 minutes of gentle stretching, a stroll around the block, or a few minutes spent tending to a plant, can boost mood, ease aches, and help you sleep better at night. And every small victory can help you build the confidence to try something a little bigger. Here's another tip. Structure helps. Plan out one small activity each week and put it on your calendar. Treat it like an appointment with yourself, because you deserve your own time and care. Over time, those small commitments add up. Before you know it, the days start to take on new shapes and meanings. Above all, remember this: you are not invisible. The world needs your wisdom, your kindness, and your laughter. Age doesn't erase the talents, skills, and passions you've built over a lifetime. It simply asks you to share them in new ways. If you find yourself feeling lost or without purpose, know that you're not alone. Many have walked this road and found their way back to joy, not by doing something grand, but by taking one simple, hopeful step forward. As you finish this part of the video, I want to leave you with a gentle reminder. You are more than your aches and your quiet days. You are more than the number of birthdays you've celebrated or the roles you once held. You are someone with stories, gifts, and strengths that the world still needs. It is never too late to rediscover yourself, to try something new, or to reconnect with the small joys that make each day worthwhile. If today feels like just another ordinary day, remember that even the smallest spark can light up the darkness. And if you need a little encouragement, think of Helen, and so many others, who found that by saying yes to one small opportunity, a whole new chapter began. Don't let the world convince you that you're too old, too tired, or too far gone to start again. You have so much left to give, and the best moments might still be waiting, just around the corner. Some life changes arrive with a bang, a sudden loss, an unexpected event. Others, the most profound ones, slip quietly into our days and settle there, unnoticed until a single moment turns everything upside down. My turning point began on a morning much like any other, when routine comforted me more than it inspired. I'd fallen into the habit of taking early walks at the park, hoping the fresh air might stir something inside that had long gone dormant. The park was familiar territory, a place where older couples strolled, dogs sniffed at tree trunks, and children chased each other across dew-tipped grass. I often sat on my favorite bench, watching the world with a mix of nostalgia and detachment. One part of me longed to join in, and the other convinced my time for spontaneous joy had quietly slipped away. I wore the look of someone who had accepted the invisibility that comes with age, blending into the background as life happened to everyone else. It was during one of those mornings when the sun was just beginning to warm the ground that my world shifted. I was lost in thought, the usual worries circling my mind, aches, regrets, questions of purpose, when a small boy, no older than 7 or 8, darted across the grass toward me. He had that wild, untamed energy children carry, a light in his eyes that made me sit up just a little straighter. He stopped right in front of me, out of breath, grinning ear to ear. "You look like my grandpa," he said as if announcing the discovery of the year. I smiled, uncertain how to respond. Before I could say a word, he continued, "He plays guitar. Do you play too?" The question stopped me in my tracks. For a moment, I just stared at him, taken aback by the innocence and confidence only a child can have. He looked at me, expectant, waiting for an answer as if the entire world depended on my reply. My mind fumbled through memories, late nights strumming chords in my living room, singing softly as my children drifted off to sleep. The feel of the wood against my palm, the twang of a well-loved string, the way music once filled my life with meaning. "I used to," I finally answered, my voice catching. "A long time ago." He beamed. "You should play again. Grandpa says it keeps your heart young." Then, just as suddenly as he'd arrived, he darted back across the lawn, leaving me with my heart pounding and my thoughts spinning. That brief encounter, so simple and unexpected, struck something deep within me. I couldn't stop thinking about the boy's words. It had been years since I'd picked up my guitar. The instrument, once an extension of myself, had sat untouched in its dusty case, hidden away like a forgotten dream. Life had swept me up, work, raising a family, health issues, the steady march of time. I'd told myself it didn't matter anymore, that music belonged to my youth. But that afternoon, I found myself drawn to the closet where my guitar rested. My hands trembled as I unlatched the case, uncertain if I'd even remember how to hold it, let alone play a single note. The familiar scent of polished wood greeted me, a flood of memories returning with every small detail. The curve of the body, the nick on the neck, the worn, comfortable strap. I sat down, instrument in my lap, and for a long moment, just looked at it. My fingers felt stiff and uncooperative. My mind was filled with doubts. You're too old for this. Your hands aren't what they used to be. What if you embarrass yourself? But I pressed on, tuning the strings slowly, wincing as I pressed the frets. Then, almost without thinking, I played a simple chord. The sound was uneven at first, shaky and soft, but it rang out clear enough to stir something inside me. A spark, a flicker of the person I used to be. I tried another chord, then a third. Muscle memory began to wake up. Soon, a melody I'd played 1,000 times before found its way out. The music filled the quiet room, and I felt an unexpected rush of joy. Not the wild, youthful excitement of long ago, but something deeper. A sense of belonging, of having a place in the world that was entirely my own. That evening, as the sun set outside my window, I realized I was smiling. The heaviness that had settled in my chest for so long began to lift, replaced by a gentle energy that carried me through the night. I played until my fingers ached, savoring each note, grateful for the small hands of a stranger who had reminded me of who I still was. It's strange how a single moment, a chance meeting, a thoughtful question, can change the entire course of your life. I began to think about all the things I had once loved and let slip away, convinced by the world or my fears that they were no longer meant for someone my age. How many other passions had I buried? How many dreams had I shelved simply because I'd told myself it was too late? Science tells us these turning points matter. Psychologists call them catalyst moments. Those brief, meaningful interactions that challenge our assumptions and open us to change. Studies from the Stanford Center on Longevity show that older adults who re-engage with hobbies or skills from their youth experience measurable improvements in mood, memory, and even physical health. The act of doing something meaningful, no matter how small, can rewire the brain, reignite hope, and bring a fresh sense of purpose. The next day, I pulled out old songbooks, struggling at first, but finding that, with practice, the music returned to me bit by bit. My hands grew steadier. I found myself humming tunes as I cooked breakfast, tapping out rhythms on the kitchen table. I even called an old friend who used to play with me, inviting him over for coffee and a little music. The conversation flowed as easily as the melodies. We laughed about our mistakes, encouraged each other to try new songs, and agreed to meet every week. The change didn't stop with the music. Feeling more alive, I became curious about other things I'd once enjoyed. I started going for longer walks, greeting neighbors I'd only nodded to before. I joined a community book club, unsure if I'd fit in, but quickly discovered that everyone had a story to share and ears to listen to. I volunteered at the local senior center, teaching a beginner's guitar class, and passing on what I knew to anyone who wanted to learn. With every new experience, my world grew larger and brighter. Looking back, I see now how much I'd underestimated myself. I thought I was finished, that the most interesting parts of my story were behind me. But all it took was one question from a child to prove me wrong. I wasn't too old to learn, to connect, to make music. I simply needed permission, from myself, to begin again. Maybe you've had a moment like that, too. A sudden reminder of the person you used to be, or a hint that you're capable of more than you think. Perhaps your guitar isn't an instrument, but a talent for painting, writing, gardening, cooking, or simply listening to others. It could be a friendship waiting to be renewed, a letter waiting to be written, or a community waiting for your unique touch. Or maybe you haven't had that spark yet, but you're longing for it, hoping for a sign that it's not too late to start over. Let me be that voice for you today. You don't have to wait for a child in the park or a miraculous sign. Sometimes, the turning point is simply a willingness to ask yourself, what have I set aside that I'd like to pick up again? The answer doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. Sometimes, the smallest acts, a walk, a phone call, a single note played on an old instrument, can be the start of everything changing. I've seen this in the lives of others, too. My neighbor, Mrs. Davis, once believed her best days were long behind her. Widowed and alone, she spent her days watching TV, convinced she had nothing left to give. One day, her granddaughter asked for help baking cookies for a school fundraiser. At first, Mrs. Davis protested. Her hands were arthritic, her energy low. But together, they measured flour, cracked eggs, and stirred batter, laughter filling her quiet kitchen. Word spread, and soon neighbors were requesting her famous chocolate chip cookies. She started a small baking circle, teaching children and adults alike, and her home became a place of warmth and connection. "I thought I was just passing time," she told me, "but now I see I'm making memories." The lesson is simple. You are never too old to change, to rediscover what makes you come alive, or to make a difference in the world around you. Aging may bring challenges, but it also brings freedom. The freedom to choose how you spend your time, who you want to be, and what legacies you wish to leave. The next chapter is unwritten, and you hold the pen. So, as you reflect on your own life, ask yourself, what small thing could you do today that might change everything? It could be as simple as picking up an old hobby, reaching out to a friend, volunteering, or learning something new. The first step is always the hardest, but it's also the most important. Don't wait for permission. Give it to yourself. Remember, your story isn't over yet. Maybe the moment that changes everything is waiting for you tomorrow, or maybe it's right now. No matter your age, you still have the power to turn the page and start again. Sometimes, all it takes is a single question, an open heart, and the courage to believe in your worth. There's a certain magic in beginnings, but there's an even greater beauty in the act of beginning again. For a long time, I thought that part of my life was finished. The part where I woke up with a sense of purpose, eager to create, connect, or simply be needed. But the truth is, renewal can come quietly, even late in life, like the soft unfurling of a leaf after winter. After that first spark, the little boy's question in the park, the trembling return to my old guitar, something inside me began to shift. At first, it was just a private joy, a secret I carried in my heart. But it didn't stay hidden for long. Music, like hope, is hard to contain. One morning, while chatting with a neighbor over coffee, I found myself sharing that I had started playing again. She listened, smiled, and mentioned that the local community center hosted informal music afternoons for seniors every Thursday. "You should come," she said. "There's always someone looking to join in." It took a bit of courage, more than I'd like to admit, to walk into that community center with my guitar case in hand. I half expected to be the odd one out, a latecomer to a club that didn't need another member. But as soon as I opened the door, I was met with a warmth that felt like sunlight. People greeted me by name, asked what songs I liked, and welcomed me without judgment. I sat in a circle with other men and women, some gray-haired and stooped, others sprightly and laughing, each holding an instrument or simply clapping along. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. As we played together, something inside me healed. The music was sometimes off-key, sometimes out of sync, but it was real. It was shared. I left that afternoon feeling lighter, the edges of my loneliness softened by new friendship and laughter. And that sense of belonging grew with every week I returned. Encouraged by the music group, I started looking for other ways to fill my days with meaning. I saw a flyer asking for volunteers at the local food bank and thought, why not? My hands, once idle, now packed boxes, arranged canned goods and handed out bags with a smile. Each interaction, each grateful thank you, was a reminder that I could still be useful, that I could still contribute. Volunteering wasn't just about giving back. It was about reclaiming a sense of agency, of mattering to someone, even for a brief moment. But the journey of rediscovery didn't stop there. Remembering the pleasure I'd found in painting long ago, I dug out my old brushes and a box of half-dried paints. My first attempts were awkward, my hands unsure, but soon the colors began to flow again. I painted simple things at first. The park bench where I'd met the little boy, the garden blooming outside my window, the smiling faces from music afternoons. It was as if, with every brushstroke, I was painting myself back into the world. Every small step reminded me that I'm still here. I still matter. What surprised me most was how many others felt the same way. In the music circle, at the food bank, and in painting classes, I met people with stories remarkably similar to mine. There was James, a retired accountant who hadn't sung in decades until his granddaughter coaxed him into joining the choir. There was Gloria, once a nurse, who thought her caregiving days were over until she started volunteering at a local daycare, reading stories to children whose parents worked long hours. Each of us had spent years quietly missing a sense of purpose, unsure how to begin again. We found a connection in our shared vulnerability. It was in the way someone's voice wavered on a high note or the way a volunteer nervously offered a helping hand. No one judged, because everyone knew how difficult it could be to step out of the comfort of solitude. We celebrated each other's small victories, a new song learned, a painting finished, a child's laugh won. It didn't matter if our accomplishments were modest. What mattered was that we were trying, together. As I spoke with more friends and neighbors, I realized just how many people my age carried the same hidden ache. The fear that, in retirement, in widowhood, in the silence of an empty house, their best days were behind them. "I just don't feel needed anymore," one friend admitted over tea. "I miss having somewhere to be, something to do." We talked about how easy it was to lose ourselves when the titles and roles we held for so long, teacher, parent, manager, spouse, began to fade. But something else happened, too. Each time someone admitted their longing for meaning, they found they weren't alone. A spark would light in their eyes, a sense of relief. "You too?" they'd ask, surprised. "I thought it was just me." We discovered that sometimes, all it took was a gentle nudge, a suggestion, an invitation, a friendly hand on your shoulder, to help us take that first step toward rediscovery. This is the truth about aging that I wish I'd understood sooner. It isn't the end of your story. It's just a new chapter, written in a language of wisdom, patience, and renewed courage. Too often, we believe the lie that our usefulness is measured only by our productivity and that our value fades as our years add up. But the real loss doesn't come from getting old. It comes from losing sight of our purpose. We don't get old and lose our purpose. We lose our purpose, and that's when we start to feel old. Science backs up what so many of us have felt in our hearts. Studies from universities across the United States show that seniors who stay engaged with their passions, who volunteer, learn, create, or connect regularly, enjoy better mental health, stronger immune systems, and even longer lives. The brain thrives on novelty and connection, no matter your age. Engaging in meaningful activity boosts endorphins and keeps neural pathways flexible. It's as if, by reaching out, by daring to care, to learn, to give, we keep the spirit of youth alive within us. I've watched friends transform in the most unexpected ways. My neighbor Evelyn, who spent years quietly mourning her husband, started a small garden club for widows. It began as a simple way to share seeds and cuttings, but soon blossomed into a group that exchanged recipes, planned trips, and looked after one another. Evelyn found joy in tending roses, but more importantly, she found comfort in tending friendships. For me, the act of teaching a few guitar chords to a beginner, or hanging a new painting in the local community center, is no small thing. Every time someone says, "Thank you for showing me," I remember how much it means to feel useful, to feel seen. Each act of kindness, each shared smile, is a tiny rebellion against the myth that aging is only about loss. Of course, not every day is easy. There are setbacks, days when my body aches or my mind feels dull. There are moments when I still question whether what I do matters. But those doubts are softer now, more easily quieted by the voices of friends, the laughter of children, the gentle strum of my guitar. If you're listening to this, perhaps you too feel a longing for more, for connection, for meaning, for the simple pleasure of doing something you love. Maybe you've set aside old hobbies or dreams, convinced they belong to another time. Or maybe you're afraid to try, afraid to be the new kid in a room full of strangers. Let me assure you, you are not alone. So many of us just needed that little nudge, a question, an invitation, a chance, to step back into the world and find that it's waiting for us with open arms. And if you wonder whether it's too late to begin again, remember this: there's no expiration date on joy, creativity, or friendship. The pages of your story are still turning, and you are the author now. Whether your passion is music, painting, gardening, storytelling, or simply listening with compassion, there is a place for you, a need for you, in your community and the world. Sometimes, the smallest steps can lead to the greatest transformation. A song played, a meal served, a garden tended, a smile shared. These are the acts that keep our hearts young and our spirits strong. Rebirth is not about returning to the person you once were, but about embracing who you are now, shaped by every experience, every heartache, and every triumph. It's about saying, "I am still here. I still matter," and believe it every single day. So, if you find yourself longing for more, let this be your invitation. Start where you are, with what you have. Reach out, join in, and say yes to something new or old. You may be surprised at how quickly life meets you with open hands and how deeply your presence is felt by others who need that same reminder. We are not finished. We are only beginning, again and again. And together, we can make these years some of the most meaningful yet. Maybe you've listened to all of this and you're nodding along, feeling a spark of hope or perhaps a small ache of regret. Maybe you're thinking about that hobby you once loved or that plan you put aside years ago, telling yourself there would be time for it someday. But life, with all its twists and turns, has a way of making someday feel farther and farther away. Days pass, seasons change, and before you know it, you've collected more years and stories than you ever imagined. And sometimes, in the quiet hours of early morning or the hush before bed, you wonder, am I dreaming? If you have ever felt that way, I want you to know you're not alone. So many of us reach this stage in life with hearts full of dreams we never dared to chase, with gifts still waiting to be unwrapped. Perhaps you've convinced yourself that your moment has passed, that new beginnings are for the young. Maybe you tell yourself, I'm too old to start something new, or no one wants to hear what I have to say. Maybe you think, what difference could it make now? But let me be clear, it's not too late. Not for you. Not for your dreams. Not for the world that still needs your voice, your kindness, your wisdom. You see, the beauty of being where you are now is that you carry so much more than just age. You carry experience, stories, and the quiet strength that comes from living through life's ups and downs. You know what it means to persevere, to laugh after loss, to appreciate the small moments. A good cup of coffee, a familiar song, the sight of a loved one's smile. And you know, deep in your bones, that joy isn't something reserved for the young. Joy is for anyone brave enough to reach for it. Think back to something you once loved. Maybe it was painting. Your brushes sit waiting, dust gathering, colors fading in forgotten tubes. Maybe it was dancing. Your shoes tucked away in a closet, your feet yearning to remember the rhythm. Maybe it's a letter you've been meaning to write, a phone call you keep postponing, a trip you dreamed of but never booked. Or maybe it's something even simpler, a story to share, a neighbor to help, a new recipe to try. Why not today? Why not start small? You don't need to paint a masterpiece, write a novel, or run a marathon unless you want to. Sometimes, the greatest acts of courage are the smallest ones. Dust off that paintbrush. Write that letter. Join that dance class, even if you're nervous about taking the first step. Whatever it is, know that it's not too late. There's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Your dreams may have waited, but they are still yours to claim. I've seen so many people, just like you, discover new chapters in the most unexpected ways. My neighbor, Mr. Johnson, spent decades working in finance. After retiring, he felt lost, his days empty, his routine hollow. One afternoon, while helping his granddaughter with a school project, he realized how much he missed building things with his hands. He started tinkering in the garage, first repairing old toys, and then crafting birdhouses. Word got around, and soon he was hosting a weekly workshop for local kids. I thought I was just passing time, he told me once. But now, I feel like I'm part of something again. Or there's Mrs. Lee, who always wanted to write her family's history but felt intimidated by the blank page. One day, she set a timer for 10 minutes and just began. The words came slowly at first, but each day, a little more flowed. A year later, she held a printed book in her hands, a treasure for her children and grandchildren, and a testament to the power of small, steady effort. Their stories aren't unique. All across the country, older adults are reclaiming parts of themselves they thought were gone forever. Sometimes in grand ways, sometimes in quiet, gentle steps. And every single time, it starts with one decision: to believe that change is still possible. Maybe you feel unsteady, unsure where to begin. That's perfectly normal. Try setting one small, specific goal for yourself. Something simple and manageable. Maybe it's calling an old friend this week. Maybe it's taking a short walk every morning, or signing up for a class at your community center. Maybe it's writing down a memory from your childhood, or volunteering for a cause that matters to you. The important thing isn't how big the step is, it's that you take it. And if fear creeps in, remember, everyone who ever started something new felt a little afraid. Fear is simply a sign that you're stepping into unknown territory, a place where growth happens, where stories begin. Permit yourself to be a beginner again. Laugh at your mistakes. Celebrate your courage. Every day you try is a day you refuse to give up on yourself. It's also easy to believe that no one cares what you have to offer. But nothing could be further from the truth. The world is hungry for your wisdom and experience. Your neighbors, your family, your community. They all benefit when you share your gifts, however small they may seem. A smile, a listening ear, a story from your youth. These are the things that connect us, that make life rich and meaningful. You are not too old. You are experienced. You are wise. And you have so much still to give, still to live. Life after 60, 70, 80 is not a slow fade to black. It's a canvas waiting for new colors, a song still waiting for its last verse. Don't let anyone, not even yourself, convince you that the time for dreaming and doing is over. You are living proof that the spirit doesn't retire. It adapts. It grows stronger in the face of challenge, and braver in the face of change. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. I want you to pause and think, what dream have you tucked away because you thought you were too old? What hope, big or small, have you hidden in the back of your heart, afraid it might be foolish to try? I'd love for you to share it below in the comments. Not only because I want to hear your story, but because you never know who else you might inspire. Your courage could be the nudge someone else needs to take their first step, too. If you're reading this and feel uncertain, remember, you're in good company. We are a generation that's lived through enormous change. We've learned to adapt, to survive, to care for others. Now, it's time to care for ourselves, to honor the dreams that still flicker inside. Take a moment, right now, and give yourself credit for everything you've already done, and everything you still hope to do. And if you ever doubt yourself, come back to this moment. Remind yourself that renewal is always possible, and that the next chapter is yours to write. You have the wisdom of years, the power of experience, and the heart to make a difference, no matter how small it may seem. So, dust off that paintbrush. Write that letter. Join that dance class. Call an old friend. Sign up for a course. Try a new recipe. Plant a flower. Tell your story. Whatever it is, do it for yourself. Do it for the people who love you. Do it for the world, which is brighter for your presence. The truth is, none of us know how many chapters we have left. But every day is a chance to begin again. Every sunrise is an invitation to hope, to act, to dream a new dream. And you, my friend, are still the hero of your own story. What dream have you tucked away because you thought you were too old? Share it below. I'd love to hear it. And more than that, I hope you'll give yourself permission to dust it off and try again. Because it's not too late. It never was. And the world is waiting for what only you can offer. As we come to the end of this journey together, I want you to pause for a moment and take in everything we've shared. Getting older isn't just about adding more candles to a birthday cake. It's about collecting memories, wisdom, and stories that no one else has lived quite like you. It's about finding new meaning in familiar places, and realizing that purpose doesn't have an expiration date. Maybe today you found a piece of yourself you thought was lost, or felt a spark of hope that you haven't felt in a long time. Maybe you're still searching for that new beginning, unsure where to start. That's okay. The truth is, every single day is another chance to try, to change, and to grow, no matter your age. Remember, you are not defined by what you can no longer do, but by the kindness you offer, the dreams you still hold, and the love you continue to give. This stage of life is not the end of your story. In many ways, it can be the most meaningful chapter yet, a time to rediscover joy, nurture your passions, and inspire those around you. So, as you move forward, I encourage you to take one small step, whatever that means for you. Pick up an old hobby, call a friend, join a local group, or simply share your story in the comments below. Let's remind each other that it's never too late to begin again. If this video spoke to you, please share your thoughts below and let us know what you're ready to rediscover. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiration. You matter. Your story matters. And the best may still be yet to come.